Do you know what I notice when I talk to you, especially if you're a designer at the top of your game, right? You're consistently closing high-end bathroom projects because you understand something other designers might miss. You understand that it isn't just about specifying beautiful tile, plumbing fixtures, and lighting. It's also about giving your client a compelling reason to say yes to the investment. And right now, steam and sauna are becoming part of that reason. Your clients are right now talking about wellness differently. They want spaces that help them recover, recharge, and feel good in their homes. Not just beautiful spaces that are also useful spaces, restorative spaces. And that's why I think Mr. Steam is doing something especially smart for you. They've been making steam systems since 1917, but what I really appreciate is the virtual spa tool they created especially for the industry. You enter the shower dimensions, the wall materials, and your client's wish list, and it gives you a complete spec package with list pricing. No guesswork, no endless back and forth, no trying to cobble together the right system yourself. Now, go to LuAnnNigara.com/Mr. Steam, right? LuAnnNigara.com/Mr. Steam. And if you are working with clients right now who care about health, wellness, fitness, and recovery, this is worth 10 minutes of your time. Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business and welcome to What Would Lou Do? These are the episodes where if you go to LuAnnNigara.com/WWLD, you get to ask me a question, something on your mind that you're just like, who the heck can I ask this question to? Well, you can ask me and I will do my best to give you a great answer. Today's question is from a listener, Hannah Textor. She's in Missouri. She's finishing up her NCIDQ certifications. Her big last exam just happened a month ago. Hopefully she passed it. And she's new to the industry. Okay. Now, I get the sense that Hannah is pretty seasoned as a human because she reached out and she said there is a longtime designer in her area who is likely getting close to retirement. And Hannah mentioned that she's watching this unfold and thinking, I don't want her legacy to disappear. I'd love to be able to come alongside her, help her carry what she has built, and maybe eventually take the business over. And she said, if I were to buy her business, what am I actually looking for in terms of value? And this is the thing I loved about Hannah's question. How do I do this in a way that protects her joy and satisfaction, the other owner's joy and satisfaction in the transition, while protecting myself? You know, I just think that is incredible. And I think that this is probably something that many people are thinking and looking around because our industry is aging. Designers in business who have built incredible businesses over the last 30 and 40 years are looking to step back. And what you are trying to do, Hannah, is step in with respect and intention. And that's rare, and I love it. So let's talk about it. Now, before we get into some of the specifics, I want to give you two principles that I'm going to come back to throughout this entire episode. Principle number one is busy is not the same as profitable, right? I've said this many times on the show, but it has never mattered more than in this situation. Any interior designer can be slammed, can be fully booked, always working, never home for dinner, and it could be going on for 30 years. And it can still, sadly, sometimes have very little to show for it financially. It is the reason for the podcast. I have seen it firsthand over and over, and the podcast is supposed to be the antidote to that. So a full calendar does not always mean there's a healthy P&L. And whenever you are considering writing a check for someone else's business, you need to know the difference before you sign anything. And principle number 2 that I'm going to come back to over and over again is honor the relationship and protect the business. Now, this is the one that makes Hannah's situation specific and beautiful because she's not coming at this like a cold acquisition. She genuinely cares about this woman. She already has this front of mind and front of heart for her. She wants the transition to feel good for both of them. And I love this instinct in you, Hannah. And you know what? When you take over somebody's business, you should care. You should be thoughtful. And you should protect yourself. These two ideas are not in conflict. And in fact, when you do things right, they actually make each stronger. So this is what we're going to walk through today. A design business is almost never worth what the person who owns it thinks it's worth. That's any business, by the way. Window treatment business, cupcake maker, it doesn't matter. And I say it with full empathy because I understand why. Whoever that business owner is, they've given, whether it's 5 years, 10, 30, 40 years to their business, to their clients. That business owner has shown up, has delivered, has built a reputation in their community. And the business likely means everything to that person. And it should. It's that person's life work. I know that feeling. But here's the hard truth. The value of a business, the actual transferable financial value, is not determined by how many years the owner worked or how much the owner cared. It is determined by one question. What parts of the business will produce revenue when the original owner leaves? That's the valuation, not the years, not the name on the door, not how full the calendar was. What will actually continue without the business owner after the owner steps away? And once you reframe around that question, everything else starts to become clearer. So let's talk about what you're actually evaluating. I'm going to give you the complete picture, both the business fundamentals and the softer factors, because in a situation like this, it's almost impossible to separate. The first thing you want to look at is the financial performance. And I mean the real numbers, not the impressions, not what we do really well, not a gut feeling. You need to see revenue over the last 3 to 5 years broken down, if possible, between design fees and product sales. And I would say broken down between design fees and product sales, period. Okay? You want gross profit margins. You want net income. And there is a critical piece that most miss. You need to understand owner's compensation separately. How has she paid herself? Salary, draws, distributions, what personal expenses are running through the business? Because a business that shows $50,000 in profit might actually be delivering $150,000 in total benefit to the owner. Or it might be inflated and not real at all. You won't know until you look. Now, I have to be honest with you about something. In my experience with working with designers one-on-one, through Chairman of the Board, through Power Talk Friday, through LuAnn Live, it is a very small percentage of design firm owners who actually track their gross profit margin, and an even smaller percentage who go beyond just recording the numbers and do the actual analysis of what the numbers are telling them. So when you ask for this information, you may not get a clean spreadsheet. You may get a shoebox, but maybe there's information in there that you can use. So here's what I would suggest. Ask for all of her project records, costs, invoices, anything and everything. And you can have an accountant or a bookkeeper have you reconstruct the real picture if it doesn't already exist. Okay, you may run into this, maybe this particular business owner, Hannah, and maybe you listening out there, maybe you have your hard data. Yay, you. You are on your way or already there to being a business and not a you, right? These are the moments that I tell you about. If it's all in your head, This is not a sellable thing. This is not a scalable thing. So it's not a general sense of how things have been going that is going to make your business valuable if you decide to sell it someday. Because if you cannot tell someone your gross profit margin and you cannot figure it out from what you provide, then and what you are actually operating with, you're flying blind. And this is not a position you want to be in while you run your business, but it's certainly not going to help you if you want to sell it someday. Okay. So the second thing is revenue quality. Not all revenue is the same. Is this business built on repeat clients who come back year after year, or is it driven by a few large one-time projects each year? Is any significant portion of the income coming from one or two relationships that are essentially personal relationships to her? Okay? If the answer is yes, this is not revenue you can count on. That's revenue that leaves when she does. I've known designers throughout the years that literally, they have 2 or 3 major clients that are always doing at least 1 or 2 projects a year in their 3, 4, 5, 6 homes, between their homes, their grown kids' homes, their sisters' homes. If that's a client that is a personal relationship to that owner, yeah, maybe they'll work with you, Hannah, and maybe they won't. Okay, so you want to look at that. And then the actual full client list, all right? A client list only has value if it transfers, okay? Names on a database are not an asset. The question is, will she personally introduce you? Will she stand next to you and say, this is who I trust. This is who I want you to work with? Because without a warm handoff, especially in interior design, you should expect, based on general industry experience, to retain somewhere around 20 to 30 or 40% of her clients. The number could be lower. So when you are thinking and evaluating if this business is worth it, you have to kind of plan for that. Yay you if more come and more stay, but you don't know it, okay? The fourth thing you want to think about is brand reputation. Does her name carry weight in the community? Does she have relationship with architects, builders, and vendors? Has she received press or recognition? All of this is real, but the question you have to ask yourself, honestly, is the brand her, or will it live beyond her? If everything people love about the business is tied to her personality, her taste, her presence, the brand will fade when she steps back. That doesn't mean it has zero value, okay? It just is another thing that you need to be eyes open when you think about taking over this business, okay? When you think about Window Works, when we transferred and sold our business to my daughter and her husband and the other partners, first of all, Billy, who has been our partner since '84, stayed in the business. Okay. Second of all, it's my daughter. Okay. It's different. Right. And then, my son-in-law, JC, had been working in the company for 8 years before he became the majority partner. And the 2 other partners, Kim and Carlos, at the time had been with the company, I think 17 and 16 years. And so, even though Vin and I were leaving the building, this was not a complete change of the guard, right? And so there was little risk of them. We get people every couple of months. Oh, I'm calling because I want my window treatments done. I want LuAnn. She did all my window treatments. And it literally takes 20 seconds for them to realize I don't do it anymore. And they might give a little pushback, but not much. Okay, not much, because, they're like, but Kim is here. Remember, Kim worked with LuAnn for all those years? Oh, and Billy's still here. And then it's like, oh, okay, I can do this. So you got to think about that in this context. It's not, a nail in the coffin. It's just another consideration. All right. And then the fifth is open projects and pipeline. This is the closest thing to guaranteed revenue in any acquisition. Signed contracts, deposits already collected, work in progress, quoted jobs that haven't closed yet. This is where immediate real value lives. And so you want to look at this. Does she have, 2 or 3 or 400K on the books that you are going to be the one assuming and finishing out? And therefore you got to figure out with your accountants where that profit goes, if it's going partially to her, all to you. Those are things, again, at Window Works, we had to think about that. Window Works usually has anywhere from 150 to 200 customers a month. So where's the clean line? Like December 31st, we own it. January 1st, they own it. But, every single project that we sold in October, November, and December is going to finish in January, February, and March. And we've collected deposit. They're getting the balance due. Like, these were tough questions that, not tough like, throwing things at each other, but like, what is the way this should go? How should this be handled, right? It's not unknowable and it's not unfigure-outable, but it is something you to figure out ahead of signing the dotted line is all I'm saying, okay? And then finally, the sixth thing is system and processes, right? Hannah mentioned Sandra Funk to me in the email, which already tells me that you understand why this matters. You mentioned the interior design standard. And so let's be direct about what you're actually looking at here. And I want to make a distinction that is critical for your situation specifically. If everything lives in this interior designer's head, the workflows, the pricing, the project management, the client communication, then as I've said 1,000 times, you're not buying a business. You are buying a you replacement situation. You will be the business, and this is a completely different proposition. Now, Hannah has made clear to me in her email that she understands design systems, and she's made clear to me that she is willing and capable of building the processes and documentation that might not currently exist. And I want to say that's a real skill and it will serve you well. But I need you to hear this, Hannah. Your willingness to do the work is not the same as the business already having the value of having it. Okay? You understand that? Just because you're willing to go do it, you can't transfer that as value to the business when you're assessing it. Because if they're not done already, now you really are buying other things: brand, pipeline, client list, right? So what I mean to say is, doesn't sound like you're going to be surprised that you might have to build the systems, and just because you know how to do that, building the systems, does not mean the absence of the systems in the business, if that's the case, is a neutral fact. The absence of documented systems in a business that you're going to buy is in fact a liability. It is months of your time. It is your focus pulled away from revenue generating activities. And when you put money down for a business, you got to get busy right away making money. Okay. A business doing $2 million a year and the owner taking home $500,000, yay, yay, yay. But if she's the only one knows how to run it, you're not buying a business. You're buying a job. All right. And that will have to be reflected in what you offer. So don't let your capability erase the liability. Your ability and mindset to fix this or to instill it is a strength. The fact that it needs fixing is actually a negotiation point. Okay. And of course, I'm making an assumption. I don't know that to be true, but you need to find out. Seventh, her team. If she has one, who are they? How long have they been there? And critically, are the clients loyal to the business? Are they loyal to her specifically? If there's a strong team that stays, that has meaningful value, because if, the clients have loyalty to the business, they will transfer it to the team, right? But if everyone depends on her, the risk goes up significantly. And by everyone, I mean clients and employees. All right. So that's a consideration to take a look at. Eighth is her vendor relationships. And this sometimes is underestimated. Does she have preferred pricing, established reps who know and trust her, access to lines that are harder to open than would be on your own? These relationships can shorten your ramp up time, and they're hard to put a dollar figure on it, but they're real. But you got to make sure they're going to transfer to you. Right? She might have stocking dealer pricing at somebody, but that company might say, well, you know what? You're brand new. I know it's the same name and it's the same, LLC or blah, blah, blah. Not even the same LLC, of course, but the same business, but no. So is it a value or is it not? So you got to go there and figure that out. And the other thing is, you got to, let's get into number 9. 9 is the financial position, right? And it's going to connect with what I was just about to say. Do clients owe her money? What does she owe her vendors? That's what I was going to say there. Does she have outstanding debts with any vendors? Does she have bad credit with any vendors? Like, we're making an assumption that her name means something, but does it mean a good something or a bad something? Okay. People don't walk around telling you that my reputation is bad among vendors, right? So, does she have a line of credit that she owes money on? Does she have outstanding debts? Does she have any unresolved legal issues? Okay. Any unresolved client problems? Because you're not just buying assets, you're inheriting liabilities as well. So these all need to be disclosed to you. Any one of them doesn't necessarily need to be a deal breaker. I'm just listing for you the things that you should be thinking about. And then 10th, are there any hard assets? Okay. In design firms, this is usually minimal. Maybe it's some sampling, maybe it's some furniture, maybe it's some equipment. Be realistic about the resale value here. Don't overpay for old samples and outdated materials just because they feel like something's in the room. Okay. You know how easy it is to get samples, but maybe she does have some, I don't know what. Maybe she's got 10 Apple computers. Who knows? Okay. Something. All right. Now, let's talk about another category that sometimes we forget to evaluate. And this may determine whether it works or falls apart. Is she willing to be part of the transition? Not just willing to retire gracefully. I mean, will she stay involved for a defined period, 3 months, 6 months, and actively introduce you to her clients? Will she stand in the room with you and say, I want you to meet someone? Will she position you as the person she trusts with her clients' homes? And I think that you were alluding to that your wish for this would be that somehow you come into the business alongside her and you work with her, whether that you for I don't know, Hannah, you might be thinking for 2 or 5 years, right? And that could be totally fine. And you guys could have, I was going to say you can have an agreement for a buyout. I don't even know that I would do that from the beginning. If, say, she said, yes, I would like to pursue this idea, but I'm definitely not retiring for 5 years. I would have to know a lot more before I say, then you should commit to being the one to buy the business when it's 5 years out. Because you could work there for a year or two and not get along. It could all not work out. And I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's more to think about in that way. But it does sound like that you're anticipating working with her or next to her for a period of time. But what's critical during that period of time is that she is consistently transferring her trust, the trust that she's earned with her clients, from her to you. She cannot, during that period of time, be, I'm the queen bee and Hannah here is my sidekick. She doesn't have to say I'm selling it to Hannah. I did this with Kim. Kim worked with me side by side for 3 years. At that point, I didn't know that Kim would eventually be an owner. At that point, I did not have an exit plan. But I was training Kim to be me because I knew at some point, whether it meant I was going to run the business from my desk or I was going to exit it, I knew that somebody needed to do what I was doing with the clients. And so I shared her with my designer clients, my retail clients, generously. Anytime Kim said something that I was like, wow, that's smarter than me, I made sure everybody in the room knew that that was a smarter than me idea, statement, whatever it was, because it only made us stronger together. So there has to be that goodwill about this. All right. And if she's willing to do that, then you have something possibly real. And if she doesn't, or she doesn't understand why that would matter, you need to factor that into both the deal structure and what you're willing to pay for it. Okay? And then the other thing is that I always like to just ask people. Ask her directly, what would make this transition feel like a win for you? Her answer will tell you a lot. Is she motivated by the money, by the payout? Is she motivated by knowing her clients are in good hands? Is she motivated by knowing that her legacy will go on? Is she motivated by being able to simply, when the time is right, walk out the door and just look over her shoulder and smile and say, you got this? Because once you know that, you can structure something that speaks to what she actually wants and values. And that's how you will also honor the relationship, but protect the business and the deal at the same time, right? Now, before I get into a deal structure, I want to name the red flags. All right. Some of you may be going through this, a situation where the relationship feels warm and the opportunity feels exciting, and that feeling can make you overlook things that you should not overlook. Watch out if everything runs through her personally. Watch out if no one in the business can answer a client question, process an order, or manage a thing without her. That's not a business, that's a job. And when she leaves, the job leaves with her. Okay? Watch out if there is not financial clarity, no clean P&L, no job costings. You know what I always talk about, the autopsy of every project. Vague answers like, we do well. I always made a good living. That's not a business that you can place a value on. That's a really great story. Okay? Watch out if she won't share the numbers. A seller who is serious about transition will open the financials, even if they're messy, even if they're not perfectly organized. If she becomes defensive or avoids things when you ask basic questions, that is information for you right there. Another thing that you got to watch out for, if she has a well-known name in the market, in the community, right? But what if this wonderful reputation, it's also been quietly known that she's winding down, right? If the community is quietly understood that she's winding down, the name itself might still mean something wonderful, but the business might not, right? Because if, you know what I'm saying? If there's just a vibe or a feeling, and that doesn't mean you can't revive it, but it's just another watch out is all it is. It's just another watch out. Now, let's talk about deal structure. I'm going to tell you right now, I can't tell you what structure to use because the right structure depends entirely on what you find in your due diligence with all these things that I've mentioned. The answer to every question we just walked through, the gross profit margin, the net profit margin, whether systems exist, what the pipeline looks like, how active the client list really is, all of that will determine what you should be willing to offer and how you will offer it, like how will you make that payout. Some think that this is, what I'm sharing with you is you got to get the answers so that when we have them, then we can fill in the blanks and structure the deal. Okay. Now, there are 3 primary structures that come up in situations like this. The first is the upfront lump sum. You agree on a total purchase price, pay it at closing, and the transaction is done. It's simple. And in most cases involving a small business, it carries the most risk for you, the buyer. You are paying in full before you know what will actually transfer. And I have to say, I can't imagine, there's the very fewest of cases ever that I would ever recommend somebody do that. Okay. And the only place it would be is if every question got an A+. The financials are strong, the systems are documented, the team is solid, it is staying, and you have very high confidence that the clients will stay. But it's almost impossible for all of those bells and whistles to be ringing everyone at the same time at the highest level. So it's almost never going to be a recommendation that I would give to somebody. The second is a commission-based structure. No money down, and you pay the seller a percentage of revenue generated from her clients and their referrals over a defined period. This is the structure I would lean toward if the due diligence reveals weak margins, little or no documented systems, and uncertainty around client retention. It protects you entirely and ties her compensation to actually what comes through, okay? And within this model, there is a tiered approach that you could consider. For example, the first 18 months, the previous owner receives a higher commission, say 15 to 20% on any revenue from her past clients or direct referrals from those clients. That compensates her for the goodwill she is actively transferring after 18 months, because at that point, you're starting to build your own reputation, your own momentum. The commission on past clients drops to something lower, maybe 10%. It runs for perhaps another year or 2. You could also structure a modest commission on all new business generated during the first 18 months, say 5 to 8%, as an acknowledgement that her name and reputation in the community is still opening doors, even with brand new clients. But that ends at 18 months, because after that, the business is yours. The third structure is a hybrid, a small upfront payment combined with a commission-based earnout, a modest amount at closing to acknowledge what she has built and to demonstrate good faith, followed by commissions on transferred client revenue over a defined period. Okay? I have to tell you, over in Exciting Windows that my husband and I run with Jessica Harling and Steve Wishnow, we have walked many window treatment business owners through the buy of another business and the sale of their own business. And almost always, it is either the second or third structure. I don't think we've ever given anybody the advice to do a full out buyout. And mostly it's either full commission pay over a period of time or a small payment upfront combined with commission-based payout. It works. It works for everybody. And it's fair, okay? Now, which one is right for Hannah? I genuinely can't tell you without knowing what you find. You know, if you get into the due diligence and discover strong margin, active projects, documented systems, team, a seller who's fully committed, the hybrid might be the right conversation. If you find low margins, no systems, a thin pipeline, and a client list built entirely on personal relationships, I would go commission only, no money down, all compensation tied to actually what performs, okay? What performs. The point is, you have some work to do first. Get your information, understand what you're actually buying, and then let that picture tell you what the deal should look like. Now, Hannah, talking back to you directly for a moment, what you are trying to do is amazing. And it's really wonderful the way you're wanting to do it. You're not swooping in to pick over someone's life's work. You're showing up with genuine respect, with intention, with the desire to be the person who carries something forward rather than letting it disappear. And this matters. You know, coming from somebody that's many, many years in business, to think that somebody would have that kind of respect. I've enjoyed that respect with our first business that we sold. I will eventually sell 2 other businesses in my lifetime, and that's not that many years from now. So just being close to that feeling, I can tell you it means something, right? I also want you to hear this. Caring about her and protecting yourself are not opposing forces. The best version of this deal, the one that will be good for both of you, the one that you'll both look back on and feel right about, is the one where you went in with your eyes wide open, where you asked the hard questions, where you built a structure based on reality and not assumptions. The passing of a torch is a beautiful thing, but only if the person holding it out and the person reaching for it both know exactly what's in the hands between them. Okay? So, if you are in a situation like Hannah's, or if you think this conversation might be coming up for you in the next year or 2, reach out. I'm always reading, I can't say I'm always reading my emails, but eventually they get in front of me. Marielle helps me with that. Okay. And if you found this valuable and you know somebody who's going through it, send them this episode. All right. So I appreciate you, Hannah, sending in your question. I hope that it gave you some things to think about. You do need some guidance in this area. Do not do this without the help of an accountant and a lawyer and possibly a succession coach. So, there are multiple things that really could be valuable about this, but there are, I hate to tell you, we've been made aware of deals after the fact where people have asked me and or Vin for advice after they've done the deal, and we've just looked at each other and shook our head and thought, not good. So you don't know what you don't know, but getting help isn't that hard. All right. Thank you so much, Hannah, for writing in, and thank you for listening today. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.